What's happening, guys? Back at you with another video. So in this video, I'm going to basically be giving my review on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, just a fair warning, there might be some spoilers, but if I get to any spoilers or talk about any spoilers, I will say a spoiler alert. That way you could be able to kind of skip ahead a little bit and avoid the spoilers. But yeah, there might be a couple of spoilers here and there, maybe, possibly. Also, too, I think I'm going to go ahead and rank the Ant-Man movies right after I do my review. There's only 3 Ant-Man movies, so probably be able to do that, just rank them really quickly. But let's go ahead and get into this review. So we got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania that came out over the past couple of days. And it was kind of interesting to me that they would start off with the Ant-Man and Wasp movie to kick off a phase, or kick off this phase of Phase 5, and basically introduce us to King the Conqueror, which is basically our big bad of the multiverse saga phase, or multiverse saga. And it was kind of interesting with the whole concept of introducing him and kicking off the Phase 5 with an Ant-Man and Wasp movie. So I was kind of interested in seeing how they were going to pull that off and seeing what they were going to do with that. And one of the things I go into a movie like wanting is to be entertained. And for the most part, I was entertained watching this movie. It definitely was a little bit on the weird side with, the whole Quantumania, quantum realm things going on in this movie, which throughout the movie we kind of spend most of the time, at least the majority of the time, in the quantum realm. But yeah, quantum realm this movie was definitely weird. You see some weird things, weird creatures, different things like that, and it was definitely a weird one. It's definitely a weird movie. Um, but yeah, like I was, for the most part, while watching it, I was entertained for the most part. I would say though, you know, I know there's been hits and misses for Phase 4 overall. Some people may not like Phase 4. I'm kind of in the minority of where I kind of enjoyed a lot of things in Phase 4. Maybe there's a couple things I didn't quite enjoy as much, but for the most part, I enjoyed a lot of stuff that happened in Phase 4, so might be in a minority for that. But the way I look at this, and I think some people don't really look at it this way, is that they always try to look for connections and how does each movie connect to the next movie, or how does a show connect to this and the MCU and overall and whole. And I think people don't realize that this is like a starting over phase. This is the multiverse saga, and we're in phase. Basically, we just started Phase 2 of the multiverse saga. If you look back at the Infinity Saga, where Phase 1 didn't really have too many connections besides a hint here and there, and then Phase 2 kind of gets small connections here and there, kind of builds up a little bit more. And that's basically what this one is doing with this phase. Like, this is the kickoff to Phase 2 of the multiverse saga. So, with this one, going off of that, I think this is a great setup movie for the coming future of the MCU overall. It sets up a lot of things to where we get the introduction to Kang, and then there's also a post-credit scene where I might get into a little bit later. But one of the post-credit scenes, well, basically there's 2 post-credit scenes. There's a mid-credit scene and there's an after-credit scene. But those definitely set up. They're not like, your typical Ant-Man post-credit scenes. Those definitely do set up some stuff for the future of the MCU as a whole and overall, So those are definitely some big post-credit scenes that we see in Ant-Man and the Wasp movie. So overall, this one as a kickoff to Phase 5, honestly, is not bad. I think it's a great setup film for what we get in the future of the MCU as far as like Kang and things like that. When it comes to an Ant-Man film, though, I think it misses some things that the Ant-Man films kind of gave us, to where they're more low and they're kind of the palate cleansers of the MCU, to where they're not big high stakes movies, and we could just have this casual movie going in and just enjoying and stuff like that. So as an Ant-Man film, it kind of misses that a little bit in this movie, and there was definitely some tonal differences in here. We got the Ant-Man films that are like fun, lighthearted, comedies, stuff like that. And you do kind of get a little bit hints of that in this movie with Ant-Man's side and all that stuff like that. But once Kang comes in, Kang is this serious dude. He makes a huge impact in the movie, and see different things going on like that. Like, it's a serious tone. So I think Some of the Ant-Man stuff that we usually gets kind of lost in translation, to where we once Kang comes into the scene, comes into the movie and all that stuff, it turns to this more serious tone, and you kind of get those, comedic bits here and there and jokes and stuff like that here and there when King's around. But it's like, King is this guy. He's serious throughout the whole thing. He makes a huge impact and all that, things like that. So that gets kind of lost in translation when it comes to like the Ant-Man stuff, the Ant-Man and the Wasp stuff that we usually get, that we're like mainly used to in Ant-Man movies. So that guy kind of gets lost a little bit for me. But by no means is this a bad movie. I don't think. I know, I don't really watch or read reviews beforehand watching these movies, but just word of mouth, and then just scrolling through social media a little bit, and just seeing bits here and there. I saw that it got a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it was like a 50 something. And people were saying like, oh, it's not too good and stuff like that. But I gotta say, for me personally though, going into this film, I was just expecting, just seeing what happened and all that stuff. And for me, in my opinion, I don't think this is a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. I think you'll have fun watching it. I was entertained, like I said, I was entertained for the most part throughout this movie, and I think it's a good setup film for future stuff in the MCU when it comes to like Kang, and we're having this villain of Kang, and then also two variants of Kang and stuff like that, to where it's a good setup film. But like I was saying, some stuff gets lost in translation when if you're looking for that Ant-Man and Wasp kind of feel for like the previous two movies. You kind of get a little bit here. You get some family dynamic stuff a little bit. You get a little bit of the Ant-Man and Wasp movie vibes a little bit in the beginning. But other than that, once they're going to the quantum realm, and once Kang appears and stuff like that, it's definitely a tonal shift, tonal change, to where Kang's this serious guy and all that stuff, and you kind of lose out and miss out on some of that Ant-Man stuff that you would kind of get from the lightheartedness, comedic, and all that stuff like that. So it's definitely going to be divisive, I think, when it comes to people. It just will depend on the person, on what you're expecting. If you're expecting a kickoff to phase 5 to where it sets up stuff for the future, then I think you might like some aspects of this. If you're going in to watch it for what Ant-Man is and the Ant-Man movie overall, you might get a little bit of that, but it does get lost in translation just a little bit for me. So if you're looking for that, for like the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie type of vibes, you get a little bit, but not as much as you would expect from like the previous two films that came before it. Um, I liked a lot of things about this. Like I said, it was definitely a weird one. When it came to stuff in the quantum realm, you see weird creatures and stuff like that. But I do like a lot of things that I was able to do, especially the setup and stuff like that. And going back to those two post-credit scenes, I'll say a little bit about it, that they're very important for the future of the MCU. Um, Very important. And I guess I'll go ahead and talk about them really quick. I'll just say, spoiler alert, if you want to skip ahead a little bit, go ahead. But, the first post credit scene, or mid credit scene, I guess you could say, was like, we got a 3 variants of King that show up on screen. And basically, they show us who they are. And there was one that's a pharaoh looking one, which was basically the Romatut variant of King. We get another one who is kind of raspy voice and has like a headpiece on and stuff like that, which I believe that would be a Mortis. And then we get this other one who is kind of armorized, a little bit slender looking. I'm not exactly sure who that is or which variant that is. Maybe a futuristic kind of variant or something like that. I'm not sure which variant that was. But I did recognize the other two. At least for the most part, I was able to kind of figure out who they were, which variants they were. But, they're talking about how the king in this movie was the exiled one, and, he got defeated and all that stuff. And then they look upon this arena kind of like thing, and you see a whole bunch of kings, and basically that's just the council of kings and all that. And I think that's really interesting. Like, it sets up a lot of things for the future, and for the future of the MCU. And I think it's like I was saying, I think this movie does great things to set up stuff for the future and all that. So that was just one of the post-credit scenes. Going into the second post-credit scene, we get a reunion of characters, really, and I'm going to say spoiler alert again. We get Loki and Mobius, and they're looking upon. They're kind of dressed in 1900s attire, early 1900s attire, and we see upon the stage a guy walks out. He has this machine of sorts, and it comes out to turn out is actually Victor Timely. Victor Timely is actually a variant of Kang, also, and Mobius is basically telling Loki, he's like, "This is the guy, seriously," and it's like, and Loki's like saying to him, "Yeah, this is the guy," and stuff like that, and it kind of cuts off after that. So those two post credit scenes are definitely very into setting up the future of the MCU with Kang as the main villain. I will say another spoiler alert if you're still watching at this point. Um, the Kang the Conqueror that we get in Ant-Man and Wasp does get defeated, and the thing about that is, like, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna make a diss on Ant-Man or anything like that, but I just felt like uh Ant-Man really shouldn't have defeated Kang the way he did. I'm not gonna say it was easy to defeat him, but like it really felt like it was like, just, I don't know, just the way it was. It just felt like Ant-Man was able to defeat him. I don't know. I felt like he shouldn't have been able to defeat him. I just feel like Kang the Conqueror that we got in this movie should have survived somehow, and actually show that threatening side to him. Show him as the big threat. I think they did a good job of setting him up as a big threat in this movie, to where he was definitely super powerful. And it's not like Kang has powers or anything like that. He is super powerful because of the tech that he has. So the tech that he has is what makes him powerful. I think they did a good thing to set. They did a good job in this movie setting him up where he's like powerful through his technology and things like that. So they did a good job with that. And I just think, in my opinion, I don't know. I have a feeling that this Kang the Conqueror is not necessarily defeated, or it seems like he's defeated and killed off or whatever. But I don't know if he's necessarily defeated or killed off just yet in this movie. Maybe a possibility we see him again. I don't know. We'll see. Another thing I want to talk about, a lot of people are talking about, is MODOK. MODOK being basically the henchman of Kang in this movie. And it's definitely weird. I mean, MODOK is a weird character in the comics as is, with his look and everything, and the way he is. He's a weird character. In this movie, he's definitely a weirdest. Spoiler alert. Well, I mean, I guess people already know, whatever, but spoiler alert anyway. Basically, MODOK in this movie is Darren Cross from the first one, who played Yellowjack in the first Ant-Man movie. Comes back and he's MODOK, and he has this mechanized body and all that stuff like that, and he's basically the henchman to Kang. And it's just weird that, with Kang being serious, and then you get MODOK, who is basically this henchman who is like comedic based, and just seems weird and out of place. And it just, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna say it doesn't work, but it's like you get that definitely, between them, you definitely get that tonal differences between them, where you have Kang as being serious, and then MODOK being weird and kind of comedic in places and all that. And you kind of feel that when you see them on screen together and stuff like that, interacting with each other. Nonetheless, MODOK was alright in the film. I don't really have too many big complaints of MODOK in the movie. I'm sure it has a weird design, but it's like, in the comics he has a weird design too. So I'm not really bashing on MODOK or anything like that. So it is what it is with MODOK and all that stuff. But yeah, like I was saying, I think this is a great setup movie for the future when it comes to introducing Kang and having him as the big bad for the future. But as far as the Ant-Man movie itself, it loses some of those vibes. It loses some of that stuff when it gets more and more into the movie. And I mean, you get a little bit of it. You get a little bit of the family dynamic and a little bit of some other Ant-Man stuff. But it definitely doesn't feel like a full-out Ant-Man movie, because it's trying to set up this villain of Kang for the future and future phases and all that stuff. So, great setup film for Kang and introducing him and stuff like that, and then setting him up as a big bad. Some things get lost in translation when it comes to it being an Ant-Man movie. But yeah, overall, I was entertained. I liked it for the most part. I don't necessarily think that shit deserves its bad reviews, but I could see why people who might not like it, just depending on what do you want to get out of this movie and what you expect going in. Like I said, if you want a setup movie that kicks off Phase 5 and sets up Kang as a good villain for the future, you might get that from this movie. If you're looking for an Ant-Man movie with all the vibes and stuff like that from previous two movies, you might not necessarily get all of that in this movie. So it just depends on what you want out of this movie and how would you expect to get out of this movie. But that's basically some of the things I wanted to talk about in this review. But let's go ahead and get into this ranking really quick. There's basically only 3 Ant-Man movies that are ranked. I'm going to be ranking, or that that came out. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this list. Starting off the bottom for me is going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp that came out in 2018? I think it was 2018, right after Infinity War. I don't think this is a bad movie, really. I like some of the things that they did in it. This one definitely is like, it has some of the vibes of an Ant-Man and Wasp, or Ant-Man movie. Some of the vibes from the first one that we got from the first movie. But just does it have a big enough plot, or big enough not super big enough villain, I guess. You have all these like 3 different parties that are like going after the same thing and all that stuff like that. I like some of the stuff like that I was able to do. Like I like as an Ant-Man movie, where it comes to like some of the scenes with where they're going small, and you compare the scale to how small they are to other objects, real world objects and stuff like that. I like those scenes where they do that. But yeah, like I said, this isn't a bad film or anything like that. It's still enjoyable and all that. But go ahead and kicking off into number 2 spot, I'm going to go ahead and say Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania will be at number 2. Like I was saying before, this is a good kickoff movie to Phase 5 as far as setting up Kang as the big threat and big villain of the MCU going forward in all these phases. It does that pretty well. But as far as, like I said, as far as an Ant-Man movie, if you're expecting an Ant-Man and a Wasp kind of movie, you're not going to get a whole lot of that in this movie. You get a little bit in the beginning mainly, and then some stuff thrown in there, sprinkled in there throughout the movie, but you're not going to get that full effect of it. That's why I got put in at number 2 for now. It's still a good movie. I still was entertained by it, but as far as an Ant-Man movie is concerned, I got put in at number 2 for now. But, going off to the number 1 spot, of course, probably will be the first Ant-Man movie. And I recently rewatched the Ant-Man and the Wasp movies, the 2 ones before it. And I gotta say, it's been a while since I watched the first Ant-Man movie. And I gotta say, rewatching it, I really dug the vibes that it gives off. It's this more palate cleanser. It's this lighthearted, comedic kind of movie. It's a heist movie at its core. And I just like the vibes that it gives off with rewatching it and stuff like that. Just like the whole scope of it. I like the vibes and all that stuff like that. So that's some of the reasons why I got put it at number 1. I think it stands really the test of time, to where it's the better. When you're looking for an Ant-Man movie, I think it's the better one. When it comes to just the character of Ant-Man and the scope and the way it is, this one is the one that really is at the forefront for me when you're getting those vibes, or you want to get those vibes of an Ant-Man movie. This is the one that does it the best, in my opinion. So that's why I got to put it at number 1. Just those things, That's what I'm looking for in an Ant-Man movie. But yeah, that's how I would rank them as of right now. Maybe it'll change in the future. We'll see. But yeah, like I said, definitely is a mixed review on Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania. I can see how some people will definitely like this movie, and I can see how some people may not entirely like it. Like I said, just depends on what you want out of this movie and what you expect to get out of this movie. It's just going to really depend on the person in hand on what they want to get out of this movie. But yeah, that's my thoughts on my review on this movie, and that's how I would rank the Ant-Man movies also too. But let me know down in the comments below if you've seen this movie already. What did you think of it? But that's going to do all for this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Remember, if you want to be a part of Team Legendary, all you got to do is subscribe and turn notifications on so you know when I post another video. Hope you all have an awesome day. And remember, be legendary.